thank you. We have people joining us from around the globe. Thank you for taking time out of your day. My name is Dr. Joshua Rosenthal, and I will be hosting the premiere of our open forums. This is hosted by the International Light Association, which is a platform for practitioners, experts, manufacturers, researchers, and authors to share their information, how to advance health and wellness through light, color, sound, and any technique involving energy, vibration, and those sorts of modalities. So thank you for joining us. I am a medical doctor, a sleep physician, also a head and neck specialist, and I have been involved in the light and sound field for quite some time, based on my exploration of circadian rhythms and mitochondrial medicine. And I will be the moderator today of a very beautiful, esteemed panel that we have. So let me introduce you guys to who we have with us today. I'm going to start by introducing Benjamin Broadhead. He's grateful for the many opportunities that he has every day to explore the mysteries of the human condition, nature, and energy as he serves his community. He's received his bachelor's in anthropology from the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, where he studied multicultural healthcare. Ben has attended many national homeopathic and herbal medicine conferences across the United States. And in 2010, Ben graduated from the Seattle Institute of East Asian Medicine in Seattle, Washington, and received his master's in acupuncture and oriental medicine. He's been practicing the healing arts in Savannah since 2011 and opened up his private practice, 8 Cranes Acupuncture, in 2013. And then in 2020, Ben had the good fortune of meeting with another member of the International Light Association, Vanessa Cisneros, who mentored him further in exploring sound and light therapies, introducing him to the International Light Association. Since then, he has incorporated various aspects of sound and light therapies into his practice and healing work, including biosonic tuning forks, the BioWell for energy, pattern assessments, therapeutic sound files, and research purposes, color tonations during acupuncture sessions, and color and sound applied to the acupunctures and the energy body. So welcome, Benjamin. Say hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here today with everyone.
Yeah, we're so pleased to have you and your perspective. Next speaker we have is Angelika Klotz. She is a mind-body observer and catalyst who has been trained intensively in allopathic and alternative medicine, energy healing modalities, and physical manipulation techniques. She utilizes her intuitively guided balancing techniques and empathetic coaching skills to empower her clients to take back their lives and bring forward their highest potential to invoke the best possible and abundant future. One of the tools in her kit is esogenic color puncture, a color light therapy that utilizes aspects of traditional Chinese medicine, as well as other points and zones to balance the body-mind system. Practitioners of this particular color puncture have been invited to present at the ELA conference many times with themes like how meditation and mindfulness influence the body-mind complex and supports healing on many levels, how color and light supports awakening and involvement of the human brain, and how brainwave induction supports physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual recovery after the pandemic. After living in Asia for 20 years, she now calls New Zealand her home, where she resides in Auckland with her husband of 40 years, her daughter, and 4 grandchildren. And I believe she has gotten up the earliest of all our speakers. So we want to thank you very much for joining us. Angelika?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you, and thank you for breaking your circadian rhythm for us.
No problem. I'm an early riser anyway, so it's good for me.
Good. And last but certainly not least, we have Pascal Vidal, who has worked as a general practitioner in private practice since 1991. He is passionate about the possibilities of understanding and taking care of oneself in a global perspective offered by alternative therapies. He's trained in homeopathy, Chinese acupuncture, foot reflexology, rapid eye movement therapy, auriculotherapy, and posture reprogramming. His therapeutic orientation has always been the classical medical approach associated with alternative and complementary therapeutic approaches, mainly photonic medicine, auriculotherapy, foot reflexology, and gemotherapy. In 2011, he met Dean Pierre Mazloum, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, founder of the Photonic Medicine, and has been working in close collaboration with him since then till his recent passing away. He was amazed by the beauty of the method he set up using the exploration of the ear pavilion, using color projection via an optic fiber with the assessment of the radial pulse to involve the autonomic nervous system in order to explore the limbic brains. If a disorder is found, the treatment begins at the limbic level first, always under autonomic nervous system control, and then the treatment is transferred to the corresponding somatic areas. He's also an author and has, I believe, additional publications soon to be released. So welcome, Pascal.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yes, we're so glad to have everyone from around the globe. So what is this open forum? Well, we're all, healing practitioners, even those who are just joining us, to sit around the table and talk as if we were all present, sharing our thoughts and wisdom about how to approach this. And so today's open forum topic is building immunity. And so, in current world events, certainly the immune system is quite of interest. And there really are two cases I see that we all would have to deal with. Someone who's proactively concerned, and how would we treat that patient? And then also the person has some sort of, acute illness, whether it be some sort of viral illness without having any specific virus of interest, and so we'll start. I'm looking right at you, Pascal. So why don't we start with you? I mean, if I was your patient and I walked into your office and I said, hey, I'm not feeling well, I'm run down, I've got some viral symptomatology, what is your approach? How do you take that patient to getting back to where they need to be?
So first of all, I will do a classical medical examination to see what is the condition at the moment you come into the consultation. And of course, then I will go on with using photonic medicine in the sense that I will make a full exploration through the use of the HEAR pavilion. I will explore with a small optic fiber, which is displaying a green color, a specific green from the Kodak Raton color filters, which is the number 53, because it's a green which allows us to detect the imbalances between the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system at the auricular level, which is at the limbic level. Because, Paul Nogier discovered in 1966, I think, he set up the full chart of the HEAR pavilion according with the different areas of the pavilion, of the HEAR pavilion, and the correspondence with the body organs. And so how I will perform this exploration. So first of all,
but just to interrupt you for a second, for those who might not be familiar, when you say ear pavilion, you mean the map of body organs or homunculus that exists on the ear. Is that correct?
It's not the homunculus. The homunculus is on the brain.
So the patient walks in your office and is just run down. So how, what is your approach? How do we take on a patient like that? What is your general approach for that?
Well, like Pascal, we do a general medical history, obviously, of the client. And most of the clients that walk in do have a particular issue that they want to have resolved. And we have a few diagnostic tools, one of which is Killian photography. So we would take the energy images of the fingers and toes. And because all meridians, as Benjamin will testify as well, either start or finish in the fingers or toes, we have a full picture of what the client displays, and not only what he or she tells us, but underlying issues, starting from childhood, even prenatal, psychological issues, emotional things that come through. And the most brilliant thing is that in our energy field, we hold a potentiality of illnesses that come forward if a lifestyle continues in a certain way. So we can interfere before they actually appear. So that gives us a great opportunity to deal with things before they even manifest. And so from what we see in the Killian photo, or what other things we established in diagnostic, with diagnostic tools, like we have points on the fingers, segments on the backs, we can test and estimate what the health status of the client is. And from there, we start with some basic treatments, and depending on how the client reacts, we then progress it further. And we use a tool that emits light and color, obviously. So we have different colors for different points and zones. And and then we go by the direction, by the reaction of the client, really. We can take another Killian photo and see what happened in the system. Most of the people react very well. And then we can establish a full treatment protocol.
So just for the audience, Kirlian photography, similar to what BioWell is using, gas discharge via GDV camera. In other words, this technology, we're looking at energy flow through the meridian system, through the body, being expressed as light or other forms of signaling through the points of exit. The fingers, the eyes, the toes. We all are emitting light. So this is, when you look at that picture, what specifics are you looking for in a patient? If I was not well, what are the signs that would tell you, or what specifics on the pictures are you looking for?
Yeah, so Peter, who is the founder of Color Puncture, who came up with the system, he has mapped out a brilliant topography, so we can actually look at organ systems and how they function. We look at particular energy flows in ancestral lines, and so there are many different approaches. We can see if your nervous system is functioning well, if your lymph system is flowing freely. All of these things we can see on the Killian photo. So it gives us really a broad spectrum of things we can look at and where we can hook into with our treatments.
And in the patterns that you're seeing, again, coming from a very traditional allopathic medical background, we would be taught that the immune system is solely responsible for why you have this viral illness. But in your experience, I imagine you see a variety of different patterns. If you could share just some of maybe the patterns, obviously each patient is different, but some of the patterns that you might see, and explain how that for our audience might support them.
Yeah, very good. Yes, I mean, we could see if an infection is actually happening. Often we see that in a disturbance of lymph flow, right? But also we can see underlying issues. And what we have experienced, especially in the last 2 years, is that most people are in an incredibly paralyzing emotional state of fear, right? And as most of us know, if you are in fear or stress of any kind, that is an underlying issue if you want to have your immune system active, right? So we could also hook into that, right? We could release some of the fear by working on certain zones and points, and in general, work on the underlying stress that people go through and support the immune system that way. And as you know, Joshua, sleep is a wonderful tool as well, right? It's something that most of us have a disturbed connection to. And so sleep is another thing we can see, if your sleep rhythm is really supporting your health or not. So we will also look at that and support clients adjusting their sleep rhythm if they do have issues there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's bidirectional, meaning that when you have an infection, the inflammatory cytokines affect the quality of your sleep. So when you have an infection, your sleep is hindered, and vice versa. If your sleep is hindered, maybe because you're dealing with some significant stress and emotional issues, and that keeps you up all night because you can't sleep, the lack of sleep impacts your immune system because, again, your immune system is being charged and created at night. So, one poor night's sleep and you wake up and then you have a symptom, you feel a little sore throat, or, people get a fever blister, or then you pick up that illness that had you had a good night's sleep, maybe you wouldn't. Yeah. So sleep, of course, I second the call to be aware of factors, the many variety of factors that affect your sleep. So,
Exactly.
so now you have me, there, you've done this, you've assessed, you found some maybe weaknesses in my system, and you're basically going to give me the, I'm saying the antidote, I'm using that very loosely, that term, but you're going to give me the antidote to boost those systems. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So, as you know, we have a similar approach to Chinese medicine. So we are going into balancing system, right? We want the body or the body-mind system really to be in an equilibrium, right? Because if you swing the pendulum in either way, that's when illness and disease comes about. So what we want to really do is bring the body back into an equilibrium. So, and how we do that is by, putting light on certain points and, certain points, zones, and we have different treatment sequences for things that we want to achieve. So immune system, as I said, we would, of course, enhance the thymus or, support the thymus. We would work with sleep. We would work with de-stressing the body. And also we would work with the lymph system, because the lymph system is one of the things that we want to have really flowing to help to release all the infection and inflammation that's going on in the body when you have an infection.
And does this system give you, obviously the lymph system is a very diffuse system of the entire body. Does this tell you where there may be stuck flow, stuck energy? And then that's, how do you know where? Because you obviously have a lot of channels, and to treat them all would not be.
Good question. Yeah. In the Killian photo, we can kind of pinpoint a little bit, if in which area we look at. Some people have it more in the head, some people have it more in the chest, and others process it more in the abdominal area. So we can go via that. We can narrow it down a little bit further and then take it from there.
Fantastic. So do you ever see any surprising results? So if someone comes and they're feeling unwell and maybe have, what is the most surprising cause of that you have determined in your, practice and experience?
The most surprising underlying cause, you mean?
Yes.
Well, there are so many causes, as I already mentioned, right? Like, stress is most often, but we do have, we also find prenatal causes, right? When the mother was very stressed in during the pregnancy, then we see that the immune system in later life can be affected as well. Any kind of trauma that happened in your childhood really can in later life determine how you react to infections. Often we have a huge emotional impact as well that happens, and then your immune system is pushed over the edge, right? So you are on a level of a certain stress, and then a strong emotional impact comes, and that pushes your immune system over the edge. So that's what we observe quite often, quite frequently, especially in children. And as adults, we have more systems to leverage that. But I mean, there becomes a point when we all just fall down the ladder, and it's just too much, and our system can't cope. And then you experience that as a full-blown infection of any sorts.
So I just want to, add a little physics here just to support what you're saying, because you really were talking about transgenerational epigenetics and just epigenetics in general, and what I would call emotional epigenetics. And
right.
As many of the audience here may know, water is an electromagnetic repository, and it can absorb these electromagnetic frequencies. And so whether they be emotions or thoughts that your mother has, or the people around you when you're, just an embryo, to, again, childhood traumas, these get trapped or, imprinted into the memory of water. And so that's one of the ways that we can now have this electromagnetic vibration stuck inside of us that's from 20, 30, 40 years ago, and it's showing itself. I think, I tell people about the organ transplants to help bring this into kind of an allopathic zone, traditional medicine, where you get a heart transplant and you certainly crave a different type of food that was the craving of the original heart owner. And this is how water has a memory. So, it's not just, our head. We all think of the memory being stored in our head, but this is kind of a holographic image in our entire water network. And so just the cell water of someone else's heart can give you new memories and new imprints that you've never experienced. So it's physics. It sounds kind of wild and wonderful and fantastical, but it is 100% based in science. So yeah, so something that people I think don't think about is their environment is really crucial. And this could be the environment that their mother experienced when they were, in the belly. I mean, it's quite amazing. So,
yeah.
All right. And so what about
the other imbalance that we often encounter is, because you just mentioned, the memory of the water, that your axis of your brain, your head brain, gut brain, and heart brain. So the connection of all three is interrupted in one stage, right? So that's another aspect that we often see happening as well. So that you're either, you're too much in your head or you're too much in your gut. And the connection of the information flow is really not happening at all. So that's another aspect that we also bring in.
That's fantastic. Now, do you also add any sort of oral supplements to support this? Is that part of the system?
No, we are not prescribing any oral supplements. No.
Okay, fantastic. And people, how long? Tell me what the experience after a client is. You're done with a client. How do they feel? What's the expected time course for them in terms of how they'll feel? Usually they
see already a shift and change before they leave our practice. But we expect them to go on and adjust over the next 24-hour meridian cycle, right? So within the next 24 hours, I would often touch base with them and see how they are doing. Some people have more severe, not side effects, I wouldn't call it, but they can really feel their body going through shifts. And sometimes we need support that with a liver pack or something like that, to support the body to detoxify. But most people feel fantastic after it, and they feel even more improvement as time goes on. So, most people are pretty happy with the treatment.
That's wonderful. So basically, this is a light-driven, holistic treatment of all the different systems that are out of balance for the client.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So that's a wonderful approach. So I'm just downloading Pascal, your file, and I'll share that in a second. But I'm gonna jump to Ben and say, so same patient is walking into your office. So how do you, and now, you may have some similarities and some differences. So tell me how that looks for you, Ben.
Yeah, there are some similarities and differences. I come from a foundation of traditional Chinese medicine and East Asian medicine practices. So we're going to do the full history intake that we do through that vantage point, which will include me sitting down with them, looking at their medical history, and then measuring their pulse, looking at their tongue, palpating the meridians and channels. And more recently, I've started using the BioWell 2, which is also used for kind of a Kirlian photography way of measuring the fingertips. And that gives me a very, very broad view of the light body and how things are working. And we start to see patterns related to the organ systems and other broader things. So I'll take all that information and then I'll triangulate it to where things are matching up, where the pulse is saying the same thing as the tongue, where it's saying the same thing as the history. And when you get enough things pointing to the same place, a pattern emerges and you treat from that pattern. So that's kind of the foundation for taking in the information. But if they were run down, I would really be looking at, is this person excess? Is this person deficient? If they're deficient, I would be thinking about ways of tonifying, ways of strengthening their zheng qi and their wei qi. In Chinese medicine, the zheng qi, the upright qi, is thought to be the foundation of our well-being. And if it's strong, then the body is pretty impervious to a lot of hits and xie qi that can come at it. If it's weak or the wei qi is deficient, then that's when we get into a place of susceptibility where the immune system is run down. We get colds, we get viruses, we just feel off. So from that point, let's say somebody was deficient. We would do treatment with acupuncture. I would probably add moxibustion if they were deficient, especially if they were yang deficient. And moxibustion is interesting because it's ancient thermal therapy. It's been used for thousands of years. And when you actually look at the spectroscopy of it, you're getting into the red and infrared wavelengths of light that are being used to actually warm up and heat up the acupuncture points. And acupuncture foundationally is related to both needle and fire, and the fire is the moxa. So Chinese medicine has had a very long history relating to light and understanding light in relationship to how we understand the meridians themselves. And in terms of different circadian rhythms we understand with the seasons. So treatment would progress. Let's say a person is wei qi deficient and they have spleen qi deficiency or something else going on. I would probably use moxa to tonify the spleen. I would maybe add herbs that we might consider using. If it was wei qi deficiency, we could use a formula like Yuping Feng San Jade Screen Decoction. We could use other things that fit their specific pattern to treat. On the side of the therapeutics that I've been adding additionally to this, I've been using the tuning forks as a way of calming the nervous system and as a way of putting a person into kind of an entrainment state where they can more deeply relax and start to process some of the other levels in their body. So a lot of people carry, as Angelique said earlier, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of emotions. Angelique mentioned fear. Fear is one of the biggest causes of depressing the immune system, and it relates to the water element being imbalanced. So ways of processing that are often helped a lot when you add tuning forks, which seem to have a very powerful effect on the emotions. And people will feel this very quickly. And I often have people mention that they feel lighter after treatments, that they feel undensified, that there's a lack in density. There's just a subjective sense of change that happens when you incorporate those tools. So I would proceed with treatment usually starting with an interval of a fifth, maybe using a C and a G to create an entrainment part for them to listen to and calm the nervous system. And then I would go on and do my acupuncture points. And then I go back and I layer on and add additional tuning forks related to some color tuning forks that I have from Jerry Wintrobe that I use, or the biosonic tuning forks. We use weighted tuning forks like this, which have a point. And these are very, very convenient for working with the meridians and acupuncture points. You can strike them to create a vibration, and then you'll actually put them on the points. So what it's had me doing is using fewer needles, maybe a couple points on the channel, and then using the tuning forks to actually help the qi propagate through the meridians and restore balance. All that while when I'm doing the treatment phase after the diagnostic phase, I'm monitoring the pulse and I'm seeing how the body is responding in real time to that. So with the tuning forks, I usually see a lot of slackening of tension that's going in the pulse. There's kind of a moderation that happens and you see people start to breathe more deeply. The other big conversation of how I would work with them is just based on self-empowerment in general. How is acupuncture working? It's hooking you up to you. It's basically communicating with your body, but simulating its own internal healing response. And that is fortunately something that is not exclusive just to needles, but can be used and worked with through tools of light, sound, our own fingers with massage. I usually teach my clients Qigong as a way of really working with their own system, learning to utilize the breath, because the breath and the Wei Qi is very associated with the lungs. And I will teach them practices to try to heal themselves, to strengthen themselves. And then we'll go from the foundation of Yang Sheng, nourishing life, where we're just looking at their lifestyle, looking at what are their behaviors? What are the things? What are the obstacles? What's the environment? What else is in the way that might be creating blockages to them feeling like they're thriving and just doing really well? So that's kind of my general approach in terms of how I work with people. Do you have any other specific questions? Or
I love that. One is just as a reminder, and I think probably most of the crowd here agrees, a great healer doesn't do anything. We just unlock the healing, the divine healing abilities that our client already has, right? So, and then, you're talking again about lifestyle. And so we're back to this idea of, epigenetics, that your genetic predetermination, that you're cursed with these genes is really not how it all works. It's the lifestyle that you live, the environment that you allow. And I think, we're talking about, electromagnetism. I think we forget that. So we have light. We, of course, know we have electromagnetic radiations from cell towers and Wi-Fi and all that we're now exposed to. We also have emotions, not only of our own emotions, but of the people around us. I think everybody talks about the toxic people in our life and how exhausting they are, these energy vampires. So again, all these moving parts of this epigenetic orchestra that are communicating with our instrument, us. So it's really quite amazing. And you're using the tuning fork in light of having to put in needles to move energy. And I would say what's interesting about that is, acupuncture with the needle is certainly causing a flexoelectric energetic release in the, the collagen and the fibers that you're putting the point on. But there is, unless you're using other like electric acupuncture or something else, there's no frequency, whereas the tuning fork has the pressure and the frequency. And so do you find that adds a different layer, and how does that interact with your treatment session when you're using the tuning forks as opposed to just the needles?
I do. I find it to be a very useful interface with that, because one of the useful things of using a needle and a tuning fork together is you can actually touch the tuning fork to the needle and it will start vibrating in response to the frequency of what you're playing. So I use the color tuning forks in that way. If I'm working, say, on the earth channels, I might use a yellow or an orange colored tuning fork, something calibrated in that range, and touch it to a point. Like if I want to tonify the Zhengqi, I might go to stomach 36 and I might use a tuning fork on that. And then I might use the yellow or orange tuning fork, touching that to kind of vibrate the handle and create extra movement along the channels. And I do find that to be a very useful way of working with it. So incorporating some of these other tools kind of opens up a whole set of other toolboxes of ways of working with energy, working with the chi, working with affecting it. Because foundationally, everything is energy. And from that perspective, the language is frequency and vibration. And we have these wonderful ways of working with it with sound and light. On the light side, I use tonations during some treatments where I will have a light on the client working with them. For instance, I had a patient who was undergoing some cancer treatment, and they were going through chemotherapy and preparing for a surgery. Their white blood cell count was starting to drop. So we thought, how can we help this? I opened some of the resources I had and looked, and I saw that violet light has an effect on white blood cells. So we did a violet light tonation along with moxibustion and other things to try to enhance his white blood cell count. And when he came back in the next week, there was a bump in his white blood cell count. It had increased some. So seeing that and using the light in a couple other ways where I've seen people with long lingering viral conditions that have been causing a lot of problems. I've seen some things with lemon light being particularly helpful with that. And one client who I was working with, it gives you a lot more of an ability to influence the qi, to guide the qi, as we say in Qigong, Dao Yan, to guide the qi. Yeah.
And when you say there's a variety of different light practitioners listening, myself included, when you say the tonation, I'm assuming this means a more diffuse all body, total body, and not specific to one little area. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm using something from Rose Peterson, which is a light, and you have glass filters and you put it on and you can create the custom colors. It's some of it's based on Dean Shaw's work in terms of that spectrum of looking at it, which is where I got that idea of violet from. So you put those in, and how I was taught from her is you keep it 3 to 5 feet away from them, and then the body will absorb as much of the light as it needs, and you're not needing to actually have the person unclothed or anything else. So I just started trying this to see how it would work, and it made differences. The other place I've seen it be very, very helpful is in wound healing, using indigo light and turquoise light. That was the mind blower for me. As soon as I got that device, my dog had a horrible injury, had gashed himself wide open, and I had this new light kit, and I thought, well, let me put it on him and see what I can do. So he had a wound that wasn't healing. We used indigo light, and within 24 hours, what looked like a festering wound that wasn't healing as well started to close up and improve. And I've used indigo on a couple other people now, and also seen that enhance, wound healing. So what the light does is it creates a diffuse field, kind of influencing the information, I think, that's going on as you're treating. And it's been helpful in certain cases. So it's just been kind of layered into my practice in that way.
And just quickly, because I'm just seeing this pop up, what's the name of this light system you're talking about?
Well, Rose Peterson is a person who sells these stained glass light kits. And that was the first light device I got. So I got that just to kind of work with and start using it. The other thing I recently started using is a MuliMed device for doing kind of closer to color puncture, of putting points on and lighting up some of the meridians and working with those. But she, when you get that kit, you basically are given the book, Let There Be Light from Dean Shaw. So I was reading through that and looking at the attributes of colors, and that's where some of my original ideas were coming from, of how to point and think about light. Basically, green being in the middle, things in the higher frequency in the blues, violets and those things being more yin, calming, parasympathetic, and things below being more yang, warming, that sort of way of thinking. But I know there's many other ways of thinking, and that's why I'm happy to be part of ELA and learn more from everybody else who has much, much more knowledge on this subject than I do.
Yes, well, I think we can all learn a tremendous amount from each other and further each other's practices and modalities by blending and merging. So I think that's what's most exciting. And so I have your slides now, Pascal. So I'm going to share those, and let's turn back around and see if we can get to hear what you were starting to tell us.
If you can share the slide number 4.
Yeah, so I'm sharing the slides. As soon as they come up, hopefully you will see. Are you able to see that screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Fantastic. So slide 4.
Okay, so that shows the lamp I'm using actually. And at the bottom, you can see the light is on, and there is a small filter in the slit. And on the upper picture, you can see that we can fix an optic fiber. And then with the optic fiber, we can examine the HERE pavilion. If you go to the next file, to the next slide, then you have the color filters we use. And if you can go down, it's not the following one. Next. You will see the next one. Yeah, this is, okay, this one. So then what we do is that we approach the light on the HERE pavilion, because I will show you there is another slide afterwards that will show that the HERE has many reflex points related to specific organs. So then when we approach the light to this HERE pavilion, we take the pulse, and that's why you have the drawing here. At the left, you have the normal pulse. And when we have an autonomic vascular reaction, which is a VAS, then we have a small increase of the strength of the pulse on 1 or 2 or 10 or 50 or 15 or 100 pulsations. And that will give us many informations about if it's an acute disease or chronic disease. And each color will give a specific pulse reaction. So then we explore the full HERE pavilion. That's because the HERE pavilion is related. Yeah, that's it. Then you have the main areas of the body here represented in this drawing. But then the here pavilion is like gives an access to the limbic brain, which is the brain which is taking over the normal functioning of the health. And then when we explore, we will have some point which will give us some reactions, especially with the first one, which is a green, which allows us to detect unbalances between the autonomic system, that is between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. So once we have areas where there is an imbalance, then we can explore further with other colors, because, for example, if we have a reaction to a red, means that there is an inflammation. If we have a reaction to a turquoise color, that means that the blood vessels may be involved, that there is a vascular problem. If it's a yellow reaction, for example, that gives us the information that the nervous system is involved. If it's orange, for example, it's the metabolism which is impaired. So with all these informations, then that helps us to either confirm or to make a diagnosis, or even to refute a diagnosis that has been made to the patient. And then we will begin to treat with the colors that have given this VAS reaction, that is the vascular reaction on the pulse. So we apply the color till the vascular reaction disappears, because that means that at that time for this patient, this color is not anymore needed, because each color will bring a specific physical or biophysical energy which help enzymatic systems and chemical reaction to start again when there is a blockage. And then, so we explore, of course, taking in consideration the clinical case and the condition of the patient, then we can have a rough idea about what will be the colors that may be needed. But then we explore, and of course, we can always explore different colors, and even some we haven't thought about at the beginning. And then once we have treated the problem at the here pavilion level, that is at the limbic, at the brain level, then we will go into the body. And for example, imagine that when we explore the area of the here pavilion, we find that there is a disturbance at the lung level. So then we will treat the lungs at the here pavilion level, and then afterward we will explore physically on the body the lungs with the light, and taking the pulse, always checking with the pulse what is the reaction. And then when we have a zone which is reacting, then we explore these areas of the lungs, and then we can treat. We can discover, for example, when we have a reaction to a blue 47, which is a deep blue, that means that most probably there is a viral infection which is there. If it's a reaction to a specific green, which is a green 54 from Kodak, then we know that most probably there is a bacterial infection. And of course, we can treat, because we have some colors that will help to attenuate, to reduce the vitality of the virus or the bacteria. And of course, we have also other colors which may stimulate the immune system, especially the thymus, which can be always been stimulated in some cases. And so we can treat infectious diseases, for example, because as the topic was immunity, I focused mainly on that. And for example, bronchitis, pneumonias, COVID infections, throat infections, gastroenteritis. Of course, we can treat all these conditions. And usually what is quite interesting is that through the light and through the colors, the body gets really a huge amount of biophysical energy, and which really helps the body to come back to mostly to a normal condition. And when it's an acute condition, actually, we need a few sessions. Of course, when we have chronic infections, and it takes more time. But what is quite interesting is that we are not only treating, of course, the areas of the disease, but of course, as you said previously, the stress is really a very important factor. And especially when you balance when you rebalance the autonomic nervous system, you help the people to get less impact by the stress, of course. And then, of course, you have an impact on the immune system through this action. And of course, we are not only treating locally the symptom, but we always explore globally the whole body through the complete here exploration of the pavilion. And then, of course, we treat at the body level afterwards all the areas of the body we have found disturbed at the brain level, that is on the pavilion. Then we will treat it locally, donc on the body, and applying the same sequence of colors we have been using in the hair till this vasoreaction is completely extinguished. So that's mainly the way we work in photonic medicine. And I mean, the explanation of it, we are not using meridians of acupuncture, but mainly we are working straight away on the areas of the organs themselves, because the light and colors really bring physical energy, which will be stored by the cells, and that will be used, of course, to restart some interrupted processes or to restart some chemical reactions. And the effect is really palpable by the patients. They really feel quite very quickly much better. As soon as you apply the color, there is a reaction that the patient can feel. And of course, then what is quite interesting is that with this pulse technique of this pulse assessment, you can, of course, have a survey of the patient. That means that when you see the patient again, you can compare what you had on the second session in comparison with what you had on the previous one. And then that allows you to see if the patient is improving, or if the patient is not improving, or even if he's worsening. But quite often, in mostly of the cases, there is a huge improvement due to the impact of the energy carried by the light and the colors.
I love this approach that you're describing. I think the first thing that I heard when I was listening to you describe it is you mentioned that going through the ear is interacting with the limbic system. You've gotten muted somehow.
Yeah, there is a neurological connection between the ear and the brain. So this can be explained at a neurological level, and that gives the explanation, for example, of the auriculotherapy. But in our case, we have a double way of action. One way of action is a purely photonic. That means that when you apply a light with colors on a tissue of the body, then the photons will they will put in movement a lot of electrons that will be transferred through the proteins quite at a long distance in the body. It's like if the body was a crystal, the proteins act a little bit like a crystal, and then the electrons can really run along these proteins and then reach the point where the action is needed. And then there are many explanations of the way of the action of the light and the colors. And of course, there are also photoreceptors, and which are quite well known for those who work with laser therapy or biomodulation techniques. But there are many processes that can be explanations, different way of actions of the light at the physical and at the biophysical and biochemical level. But of course, there is also the action through the neurological way. That's why we use the hair pavilion, because then it's a way of asking the brain what's going wrong, what's not going right. And then we have the explanation, we have orientations, and then we explore, and then we reconnect somehow the body with the limbic brain through the applications of colors at the body levels themselves.
Well, I love it. So it's diagnostic, it's therapeutic through the ear, and the therapy is actually at that level emotional, I imagine, to a certain degree, since it's interacting with the limbic system, which is connecting, not just physical material. It's similar. Yeah. It's similar to what Ben and I were discussing a minute ago. It's a wave with a wave, right? We're adding electricity, in a sense, electrical energy or photonic energy, which just is a pure electromotive force, but we're adding a vibration on top of that. When Ben's using sound to connect through a needle to go to a collagen network, and you're doing it with photonic frequencies. So there's energy as well as the information of the particular colors that you're using. And so I find this to be, quite interesting. And And as you said, yes, there are many ways, and I would suggest that the color frequency is changing molecular vibrations and enzymatic equations, because every protein really is a tuning fork of sorts, and enzymatic activities, when you look at how they actually proceed, we're taught that it's a very simple linear add energy and it happens, but that energy could just be of perfect molecular resonance in that molecule or in bond angles or vibrations, and so this is a way to interact with those, and so that's what you're doing then when you're moving it to the body parts, correct? So you're actually changing the physical expression of the disease at that point, or biochemically and also photonically in the target organ. Is that correct? You muted again. We lost you.
Yeah, it's correct. It's correct, of course.
Yeah. So I think we've had a tremendously exciting exploration of a variety of ways of approaching similar ideas. And I think, again, as moderator, I've heard a lot of very interesting similarities, that make me wonder why aren't we all incorporating these ideas of its multi-variable modalities of information and energy. So I'm going to see if Vanessa, if you're there, if you can look in the chat. I'm seeing, I see there's quite a few people have asked some questions. So let's take some questions, because I see we're at the hour. Because I'm sure there'll be some interesting conversation that may continue. I can try to do that, Vanessa, or if you're there, but let's see. I'm seeing.
All right, so there's a question for Pascal. Please give an example, say, of someone with ADHD. Would he do a pulse test the ear with the Premio 40? And they're also wondering if the Premio 40 actually works.
How it works. Right.
How it works. Wait. Pascal, give me a second.
Yes, you have to go unmute yourself, Pascal.
I'm sorry, what is the ADHD?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay, so actually, this is quite a complicated case, the ADHD, but of course there are ways of work. So we have to do an examination of the pavilion, but mainly would be at the brain level, which is on the lobule of the ear, where we will find then at the bottom of the ear here, and we will have some reacting zones, of course, and especially then we will have to work at the brain level with the light, with the optic fiber and with the Premio light, and answering. And of course, it's difficult. I mean, for sure, on the brain, especially on ADHD, you will never use hot colors like red or yellow. You will really cool down. You will rather cool down the hyperactivity and the deficit attention. So then you will use mainly colors of the blue colors and the turquoise. But you never know what color will be used previously. It's only when you interact directly with the patient that you will know which color it really needs to be put on, because two different cases of the same problem will have a completely different treatment. It's really a personalized treatment, completely personalized, because it takes in consideration, of course, the physical condition, the emotional condition. I mean, I'm speaking in general, no? And there is no such a disease like asthma or bronchitis. I mean, there are only persons suffering from an asthmatic expression, but it's the disease in itself. It's only a label, but it's to help us to understand. But the reality is that each one is really different. And what is quite interesting is that we can really treat each one with a specific way, which is specific to himself. And to how the Premio light is working, actually, it's a light, and then you put there is a slit in which you put the filter on, and then you will have a color light coming out from the lamp. And of course, then you can. There is also a flickering system that you can pulsate the light at some frequencies, or you can use the light on a continuous way, and there is different also intensity according to the condition. For example, when you have a patient which is suffering from a cancer disease, this patient is really weak, especially when it's a long-term story. So if you use very potent light, you will not have any effect. But if you use a very low intensity of light, then you will get much more reactions because the body is weak and will react to lower intensities than higher intensities.
It's a great answer. And I love that you're interrogating the patient's own nervous system and electromagnetic body, I would imagine, not just the nervous system even. So I'm seeing a question from the audience. Has COVID brought out any specific new issues or new modalities that relate to holistic therapies? I'll open that up to all speakers. That's a broad, very broad question. I can rephrase that in a way. Has COVID caused you to double down on increasing the amount, the intensity of the modalities, the amount of therapeutic options that you do in one session? Has COVID changed how you practice to give the patients more, or because they need more? Maybe that's another question that could be a variant that maybe would spark some responses.
We have found that COVID really affects so many different systems. And as Pascal just mentioned, we have to approach each client as very personally, because I found in my practice, and I'm not sure if all of you agree with that, but wherever this person had an issue before, or weakness, I should say, this comes really forward with COVID. So if the weakness was in the heart area, then the client experienced heart issues with suffering from COVID. If there was a weakness in the lung system, then this is brought forward. So we have to, for me at least, there is no generalized treatment, but I have to really go with what the client presents. And of course, I open, my whole toolkit to it, approaching it in a very intensive way to really support all levels of that particular system that is affected, right? So not only color, but we work with frequencies. We work with the brain waves, so helping the brain waves to adjust to certain issues and things like that. So and also we prepare the client that it might take a while for them to fully regenerate, because we find that once the weakness is highlighted, it will take a while for them to recover. And that's majorly important, because if we don't take the time to fully recover, the virus has the potentiality to become latent in the body. And then whenever the immune system is again, on the brink of collapsing, then it would come out again, right? That's why we have some people who come, who had COVID, even though they're vaccinated, they have already had COVID twice or 3 times, right? So you really want to make them aware that they have to take the time to and their system to fully recover, because otherwise they will be in it for the long haul.
I'm just going to piggyback with what you said, and you mentioned that the weaknesses that they see, and one of my perspectives is a mitochondrial perspective, and so whenever we're talking about energy of the body, we're talking about where does that energy come from, and certainly there are energies I'm sure that we cannot measure today, but one of the energies we can measure today is being produced, a lot of the light and sound vibrations are being produced in the mitochondria of the cell. And, one of the things that I often find is these weaknesses are expressions of a loss of mitochondrial function in different organ systems or cellular networks. And, not only trying to facilitate energy flow, but also facilitate repair of the mitochondria, because again, they still are, they're, if you think of them as a battery level, at some point you can charge your battery when it's dead, but it doesn't hold the charge as long. And so you eventually get a new battery because you want it to last for more than a day on a charge. And the mitochondria have that nature where when they're broken, as we age, they already decline, but as they break down, they lose the ability to really make energy appropriately. And so we can repair and regenerate, but we also have to also incorporate helping them out. And there's a variety of things that can be done. And so that's another part I would just add. I see Denise has a question up, so I'm going to try to unmute you, Denise, and let you ask your question. Hopefully that.
If I can say just something to go on what you say, Joshua, is that of course mitochondria are really important, and what is quite interesting with this physical energy which light and colors bring is that it helps the mitochondria to restore the respiration at the mitochondrial level, and that's one of the ways of actions, the main way of the actions of the light and colors at the biophysical level, and that's quite interesting and important.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, and I'm just mentioning that because I don't know that I think practitioners may be doing that and don't realize that that's part of what they're doing, and there are a variety of ways to help stimulate mitochondrial repair besides light as well. So more than one modality can be used for sure. So Denise, we started to hear you a little bit. You did unmute. Go ahead and ask a question.
Hi, yes, in relation to, and thank you for this. I'm sorry I was late on this. In relation to the question about COVID, and my modality is using light through the eyes and measuring the effects of that on the autonomic nervous system via the field of awareness, color field of awareness. So I have found that what I call trauma program, which is specifically very powerful in resetting the autonomic nervous system, I have had to repeat that many more times with COVID patients than ever before, in fact. And I mean, I've been using this method for 25 years. So in the last year, I have been wary of using that particular program, which is a combination of violet, indigo, and turquoise, and then on to lime later on once their systems strengthen. But those three first colors, or let's say the first two colors, violet and indigo, are the colors that, because they're at the extreme end of the spectrum, I don't use them intensively because they can create an intense reaction. But with COVID sufferers, I've increased it and then been a little nervous about increasing it more. And then patients have come back to me and said, oh no, I liked it so much. I felt so much better with those two colors that I just did it myself again and repeated it and then repeated and repeated. And so it was the profound experiences of patients that came back telling me that then I started to suggest it more and recommend it more frequently. So it is that begins to open up. I know that with every patient, yes, we have a different pattern and a different route into our resetting our systems. But when you remove the fight-flight reaction and you begin to expand that field to a degree where there is a level of safety that is felt by the patient, then they are more able to release and face those other areas in their systems that they've been holding on to for a long period of time. So it's very much on an emotional level, but absolutely a vast amount more of that specific trauma program. And I think the question that there is that there's underlying fear is absolutely because of violet and indigo are really a reconnection to spirit and to a higher power that dissolves a whole lot of that fear.
And your clients are using what, colored lenses, some sort of a light device? How are you? Because you mentioned they're doing it at home themselves.
So I have used little light machines with gel filters, or we use the goggle gel filters, or I also have the monochrome dome. I also have a spectral receptivity system, which you can't get any longer. The dome, Carl Ryberg, it's Carl Ryberg's instrument. So those instruments, but definitely filters, and you can use glass filters or gel filters. Gel filters, although the feeling is that glass is better, but in actual fact, it doesn't really matter because it is the color. It's if you've got the right color, you've got it in the right periods of time and the right bite-sized pieces of it, then you're going to reach the same effect. Well, in my experience, anyway.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Denise. Any comments from our speakers?
I would say that on COVID, I've seen a lot more blood stasis and a lot more dampness resulting in people who have it, which I think factors into the mitochondria part of cells not operating well. So I've been teaching a lot more people self-applied lymphatic drainage on themselves to use as part of what they do when they're working. And I also find it really necessary to use some ways of releasing kind of the toxicity from that whole thing from the body. So I do a fair amount of cupping, especially on the back. There's an area on the back of the scapula, which is for resolving toxicity. And I found that cupping that makes a big difference. I've seen that help some people with tinnitus and vertigo. And one person had a very dramatic effect with using the cupping and acupuncture and some light therapy. So I think it's important to do some of those types of therapies. We want to do things to boost up, but we also want to try to clear the viral load, or what we would talk about in Chinese medicine is to, get rid of and resolve latent pathogens, which is long in the history of herbal medicine. Pandemics have been around for a long time. It's just our first time all experiencing one. And there's a lot of herbal strategies going back to the Shang Henlun and Wen Bing and other ways of trying to intervene and clear latent pathogens from the body. So I have found herbs to be necessary to use when people have had lingering coughs and other things, and using some of those strategies to work. But I do find that just adding these dimensions to whatever modalities we're practicing, layering seems to be necessary with COVID. We need a kind of more complex way of helping the body adjust and work. And I think that both light and sound are beautiful ways to influence that process and support a person and re-energizing and gaining their vitality. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, I would agree that I think COVID has taught us at least the health and wellness of society is a multifactorial problem that has been kind of hidden from us. And COVID is really just revealing what was already there. Mm-hmm. It's not really, it is a player in some damage, but I think damage already is pre-existing in most people before they even get, and we're just bringing this out. So I think, it's unfortunate that the traditional approach, and my colleagues in profession, it's wait till you're sick. I think we really need to approach how do we build health and maintain health, because health is slipping well before disease ever appears, and we really shouldn't wait that long. And so a proactive versus a reactive approach. Mm-hmm. So I think, I'm just looking at the time. We've been going for over an hour. This is a very beautiful and successful. I'm going to give everybody a chance just to tell us how they can find you. So if people are looking to connect with you, and if you have any other last words that you want to share. I do want to mention before we go into this that this event was free for all, and that we're going to be continuing this open forum style with healers and practitioners from around the globe sharing their knowledge. And this will become a members, either a paid event or a free for members. So I do encourage everyone to go to lightcolorandsound.org, become a member of the International Light Association. We really want to share and collaborate what we're all doing to make each other better healers, because we have such a huge demand to heal the world and our peers and friends and family and colleagues and all of humanity. So But I'm going to open it up since you're right on my screen, Ben. Tell us any final parting comments and where people can find you if they're interested in talking to you or learning more about what you do.
I would just say that everybody should realize that health is in each of our own hands, and that as we really work with our lifestyle, our way of being in the world, we can affect profound changes. So I would really encourage people to develop personal practices. For me, I do Qigong, chanting, and other things on a daily basis to help work with my own energy, in addition to trying to work with diet and sleep and some of these other tools. And I really try to encourage my clients to do the same, to recognize that we are multidimensional beings, that from a Chinese perspective, we're the three treasures. We have Jing, Qi, and Shen, mind, body, spirit. And I feel like when we get each of those dimensions really working together, we create coherence. And coherent light, as we know, is like a laser, and that creates a lot of profound energy. So when we can line things up, when we can get our circadian rhythms going, when we can work with the seasons and with nature, that's the foundation of Chinese medicine, is going with nature, not against it. We start developing our birthright, which is health, healing, and wellness. And we can do this for ourselves. Qi can be influenced with needles, with sound, with light, but it can also be influenced with our mind, with our breath, with our posture, with self-applied massage. And we have free tools at our fingertips and free resources with breathing to be able to turn on healing. So I just try to encourage everybody to remember that, because it really creates, I think it cuts through some of the fear and helps people realize that we have a lot more that we can do to influence our health and well-being. And just embrace the diversity of views. There's so much out there in this world, and so much we can learn from each other. And that's why I particularly like the International Light Association and a forum of working with people from many disciplines from around the world. Nobody has the whole solution. But I think when we come together, we can all become better at what we do, and that becomes more of the solution. Yeah. So you can find me. My practice is 8 Cranes Acupuncture in Savannah, Georgia. And if you type in 8 Cranes Acupuncture on Google, you'll see me pop up there. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Angelica, I see you. Oh, you're either clapping or you raise your hand, but let's go to you.
No,
now.
I'm clapping because I cannot add anything to what Benjamin just said. I think it's fantastic. My thoughts totally, we have to, what the pandemic really taught us is we cannot live our life oblivious of what's going on around us and then expect a magic pill or a magic injection to rescue us, really. We have to take our lives in our own hands and educate us. I think education is one of the main things. Many people are totally oblivious of how their body is working. And I mean, not that everybody needs a medical degrees, but some basic understanding is key, and then, as Benjamin said, go out. There are so many complementary therapies out there. Find one that you love, you enjoy, your body enjoys, your body-mind system enjoys, and then this is the best way to keep yourself on track. Keep yourself healthy on all different levels, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Yeah. So totally what Benjamin said. This is the time to take your health in your own hands and be the master. Be the master of your life. Be the master of your health and your well-being.
I love it. And where can people find you to find out more?
They can find Color Puncturist. I already typed it in there under esogetic.com all over the world. My personal email I will type in. And my personal website is angelichealing.co.nz. I will type it in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I would add that, we're all running around. One thing that COVID did, it got us to slow down, and hopefully, a lot of people have, for the first time, maybe in a really long time, connected to the inside of their body. They slowed down enough to really just connect with who they are and how their body feels. And that's the starting point of everything we're talking about. It's just awareness. Awareness certainly is curative. So Pascal, if you can unmute and tell us your final thoughts.
Well, I agree with what Angelica and Ben told, and it was really well said, and thank you for telling that. And of course, I think with the lockdowns, we had the opportunity to get closer to us, because we are running outside, and then it made us to come back to us, to what we feel, to what we need, and then to make us aware of what is really health and life, and then to develop some practices, and especially, there is a very simple practice, which is breathing correctly. And because when you have especially a lung problem, like in COVID, for example, with the amount of oxygen you can breathe in daily, if you do it in a conscious way with a full breathing involving the diaphragm, then you will be able to regenerate your own lungs, even when they are disturbed, or when there are some lesions after the COVID, and then that you're gonna really regenerate your lungs, because it's the main organ, it's the organ which is really mostly in contact with the oxygen. So then you have you have a very important power of regeneration in the lungs, and if you breathe normally, if you have a really big intake of oxygen quite constantly, that means that your supply of oxygen to all your tissues is really good, of a good quality, and then that will allow a cellular respiration of a good quality, and then that allows us to stay healthy physically.
Beautiful.
And for those who want to contact me, I will also write my email address here in case there are some questions, or I would just doing that now.
That's great. And I would just say, it's been my honor to be the host or moderator for today's open forum. I think for those who are interested in finding out more about me, you can go on to quantumsleep.net and find a little more about what I do. It's been a pleasure talking to these wonderful practitioners of light, color, and sound. I think they're also different, but they're also similar. I love hearing different approaches, because we're all talking about the same thing. We're just coming at it from different approaches, and so I love that we can communicate on really a similar level. So I encourage anyone who's listening who's not a member of the International Light Association, please go to lightcolorsound.org, lightcolorsound.org, and join us. We would love to share with you. We'd love for you to share with us. This is really a chance for us all to improve the health and wellness of those that we're interacting with, taking care of, and ourselves, because I think it's becoming, we need to protect ourselves, the practitioners, so that we can help more people. So I know we are often the worst group of taking care of ourselves. So I encourage all the people that are here to take some time. I know Ben said he's spent some time, but let's all continue, because I think we're going to be so needed to do that. So take care of yourself, take care of each other. And we look forward to bringing you some more information about our upcoming open forums as they appear. And we will, as an organization, be working towards a face-to-face meeting in the future. I know someone did mention that, barring, international world events and how everything goes, but that is in the works. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. We look forward to hearing your feedback. Please contact us with more topics that you might be interested in. We're going to continue to put out and share great healers' stories, techniques, and modalities on this platform. Okay. Thank you, everyone, again. God bless.